The Huntington welcomes you to the Director's Talk for Our Daughters Like Pillars, featuring Kimberly Senior in conversation with Pascale Florestal. All events at the Huntington include a land acknowledgement. The Huntington acknowledges our physical spaces stand on the occupied homeland of the Massachusetts people. We begin by acknowledging the Massachusetts tribe, from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their name. We pay respect to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit the land to this day. We honor and respect the many Native peoples who are connected to this land, past, present, and future, including the Nipmuc and Wampanoag peoples. And now, the Director's Talk.
Kimberly,
Pascale,
I'm so glad we could have this moment to talk about this beautiful play that we've been working on for God knows how long. But can you tell a little bit about what attracted you to this play and why you were so excited to be a part of it?
Yes, I think I read this play in the winter of 2018.
Oh my God. Wow.
I know.
Wow. It seems like an eternity ago.
And I was sent the play by the Huntington. I had previously done the niceties here, and it was like right after the niceties. And I immediately, it's a big play.
Yeah.
And I read it in one sitting. In fact, I know where I was.
Really?
Yes, I was doing the niceties in California. And I was sitting out on my balcony and I like devoured it.
Yes.
Like I had a cup of coffee and I was sitting out on the balcony and I was so drawn in. I think I was first drawn in by all the women in the play. It is just chock full of women.
Yeah.
And they're also different. There is no and none of them they're all women I recognize and none of them are women I know either. So there was this, that amazing, a bounty of opinions and emotions and thoughts and conflicting agendas. So I first sunk into that. And then as I pulled back, it really reminded me of my family. As you know, the play takes place on our family vacation.
Yep.
And my family, like a lot of families, tries to get the gang together.
Right.
And there were so many things I was like, this is exactly what happens in my family. And all the different roles we play. And it really made me think about how much of who we are is sculpted in these moments by our family, whether we're estranged from them or close with them, that the narrative of our life and the roles we end up playing come from these central moments of family.
Yeah.
And then I put the play down and was like, this is the next great American play.
Say it again. Yes.
And I felt because what Kirsten is able to do in this play is to draw upon so many greats from the past, right? And those greats that have lived to tell the tale. I think that there were many other greats that existed that we're not aware of, and hopefully we'll find in some theater archaeology land. But that the plays that have remained and are plays by Tennessee Williams, by Chekhov, by August Wilson, by Lorraine Hansberry, by Arthur Miller, by Tracy Letts, by Sam Shepard, that these plays, they become these great American plays because they're able to sort of look at an American moment and make them both specific and universal. And instead of being angry at the things that came before and rejecting them and trying to make a new form, Kirsten's like, I'm really inspired by this thing. What is it like for the ghost of a father to loom large over a family? And instead of reacting against it, Kirsten works through these notions and they come through her lens, through her distinctly female, her distinctly Black lens. And so I thought, gosh, she did it. She did this thing that is both honoring history and acknowledging that we come from somewhere, and then shining light on our present moment. And then to me also sends us into the future when we leave the theater, both with how will we be in our families and what will our theater look like tomorrow? And so I love that Kirsten's working in both this specific and universal way.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
So I was I have to do it.
And I think that's what makes the play so exciting for us right now, right? This ability to see another American story through a different lens and the epicness of it, right?
It's epic.
It's so epic. Can you talk a little bit about, you've talked about other shows you've done and most new work. How is this process different than the other shows you've worked on?
Well, Pascal, as you might recall, we took a 2-year and 2-day break.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And that was interesting.
It's on my most optimistic days, I think about how that was like the greatest thing ever for the play,
Right.
because we all got to like marinate in it and live in it just even a little bit longer. And most of us had already been working for a while on it because we had workshops prior.
Right.
And so like the play has lived in me now for 4 years. It's lived in Kirsten even longer, you know, I think for most everybody else on our team, a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
And so we got to live in it in that way. I think it's also been different because in that time, the world obviously changed as it's wont to do in a 2-year period, right? I don't think that is only because of the pandemic.
Sure.
And because the play takes place in the present moment, we had to think about how does this like, we couldn't just put on a play that took place in the summer of 2019.
Right.
Like that is the before times and it's supposed to be right now.
Yeah.
But we also didn't want to make something that's like so specifically of this minute. You know, and so then I think there was a lot of like, how do we recalibrate? And I'm talking now about like details of the world, but I think it was also about how do we recalibrate ourselves? And that like, we all change over a course of 2 years, but that there has been a lot of like sea change in humans and in the world, the way we feel about our place in the world, the way we feel with one another, the way we feel inside of our families, the way we feel about our work. And those characters also went through those things. And so what I think is totally freaky is that the play is better served by that. She was already dealing with characters like on the brink of revolution inside themselves and like dealing with that. And now there's like even more turbulence from that's actually drawn from the 365-degree world around us to sort of feed that. So I think like that way has been very different. I think what's also different about it is this play is a revolution and it is deeply political because it exists. That it exists at all is a revolution. And I think a lot of the new work that I've been very fortunate to work on have been plays that like lob out a very specific question to the audience, and through the act of a usually painful play, you know, for many of our audience members who've seen like The Niceties, for instance, and also Disgraced, which I didn't do here, but is a play I worked on, and like, and that is at the center of it, are these issues and this discourse. And a lot of my work has been about how do I make discourse human, right? And how do we do that? And in this play, it starts with humanity. And so for me, it's been a treat. Oh, also it's funny.
Yes, it's so funny. It's so funny. Even if it is painful, right? Like we can live in both with this play, which I think is so beautiful about it.
It's just been, yes, that's been a really cool, you know.
I love that. Okay, we've talked about this before, but I think it's important for the audience to know. If you had to identify with any Shaw sister, who would it be and why?
Okay, you have to answer next.
Oh, I will. You know it.
Okay. I mean, it's really no question. I am Lavinia. I am the oldest of 3 children. I am the plan maker. I sometimes unnecessarily take on the burden of the emotions of everyone. I feel the responsibility to hold the family together. And I'm the eldest, and I also feel something that like Lavinia sort of says in the play. It's in there, but not totally. But like I've been around the longest. Like I know this family better than anyone. You younger siblings, you weren't here when I was born. And so there's something about having lived in the family the longest and being there for the birth of the other 2 children and watching them grow up as well, that I think like gives both Lavinia and I like that's our resume for like why we should be in this leadership role in our family, you know. And for my family, I am the like Uber caterer. Like I think a lot of like Lavinia carrying around the notebook and planning the meals is inspired by some of my conversations. And there was one year I didn't go on vacation with my family, and they called me afterwards because I was like doing a show, and they were like, we were starving. There was nothing to eat.
There's no food.
No one planned any meals.
Oh
and
my
I was
God,
like,
the pillar.
And there it is.
There you are.
And there it is.
Wow, I love that. For me, I also am a Lavinia. I'm the older sibling as well, but older of two. But as I was watching the show again today, I was like, I am Lavinia, but I'm also a sprinkling of Zelda.
I'm a sprinkle.
Yeah, because I think there's something about Zelda's passion to find her own outside of her family that I so identify with. And I think we all have had that point where we had to like leave the nest,
Yes.
figure out who we were. And, she makes that big decision to own herself and really leave this idea of who she's supposed to be. And I think so often that's where I find myself a lot in my family, leaving the expectations or the idea of what was going to be and just coming into something different.
And that makes it even harder to also be a Lavinia because you're like
exactly
drawn both places. Like she
right.
has in that shift that the whisper was like, come on,
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I left my family for 20 years. I moved to Chicago.
Right.
I'm the only one covered in tattoos that's an artist and doesn't know where her next paycheck's coming from. Like that is not the way we were raised.
Right,
and so it's like, I have that bit of Zelda as well. I think the emotional core is Lavinia.
Same.
And some of the like external behavior looks more like Zelda. I mean, I have also been the person that was given the couch because I don't have a spouse. And I'm like, well, only people with spouses get couches on vacation.
That's just so rude.
I have said that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So what do you think it means to be a pillar then? I think that's something beautiful about the title. And I remember when I first saw the reading of this play, it was a different title. And it was still there's
and Moira spins.
And Moira spins, exactly. And so when Kirsten changed it, it just made me think so much about the conversation she's having about a daughter's role. And I wanted to know, what's your idea about that? Being a daughter, having a daughter, all of those things.
It's interesting because you know that quote is from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I, gosh, I'm like sort of gonna get emotional about it because I think we talk so much about women's roles in the world and how they're not superficial changes that need to be made. I know you and I've had conversations about power, and it's not just to transfer power, it's to transform what power looks like. And I think about like the Me Too movement and how every woman I know has had something happen to them in their life, on various scale, right? But that like, when I think about these things and I'm in conversation, I think who women are is so deeply woven in the fabric of who we are. Like it's biblical, right? This doesn't just come from our parents. This doesn't come from our grandparents. It doesn't come from no matter who we are, no matter what native land we come from, like we have been told from the beginning that words were written about how to be a human that we still like have and use, right? Because there are other words somewhere. That daughters are expected to be pillars. And that is our job. And so I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And like, in the Lavinia of it all, like who would she be if she didn't feel like she had to hold this family up, right? Because that's so much of the story in here. And, I loved, we were having that metaphor with the cast the other day about like, well, we're just the scaffolding. We're not the pillars.
Right.
We are the scaffolding, and we can now go away and the building shines and new light hits it in more beautiful ways and all that gets revealed because we've been there to help support it. And I think like, if daughters could be like scaffolding, that there would be a lot more freedom for women. I think, in very positive ways. When I had this, I'm gonna name drop right now.
Do it.
I had a wonderful conversation with Gloria Steinem. And it was prior to it was prior to the midterm election. So Trump was already president. So this was in 2020.
Wow.
And I said to her, like, well, how are women ever going to get elected? And she is sure, it's like, everybody hates women. This is, and she said, no. Your son will never have a problem electing a woman. And it's because men do love women and women love women, but we expect women to be these types of pillars, in particular in family settings. And so we're afraid of our pillar going to run the country, or going to grad school, or doing anything really, right?
Anything so outside of what we're used to,
because we're afraid the building will crumble. And so the more models we give to both our young men and our young women, they will, because there's a lot of internalized misogyny in women as well. And I think that like the more we show like that we also help our male identifying, friends to see that they can also be pillars, because I think they've been denied that privilege so very often, and to be able to share the weight of these buildings that we construct.
Mm.
I do think it's gonna it'll change the world. We just have to even in Greek architecture, pillars have female faces on them.
Yeah,
It is
right,
wild.
right. Just leaning into that.
Women
more.
have just been holding stuff up for
Right.
centuries.
For centuries. And now it's time.
And we were commanded to.
Yes.
And we were okay, we will.
Right. So what do you want the audience to think about or to leave with? I think so much about the ending with Lavinia and Yvonne and this kind of unspoken ending that they have, because there's no real there's no bow that wraps up like a nice present, right? Which it shouldn't. But I'm curious what you want the audience to leave with after they see that moment together with them.
I think that if you're an actor in this play and you're watching this play, you should believe, as long as you can, that this vacation will be happy and will resolve. That you must go forward and be you know what, if we eat the cream, if we do karaoke, if we go antiquing, there are all these ways they try to jumpstart this vacation because we want to feel safe in our love.
Right.
And so if the audience continues to believe this, maybe today's the day the play doesn't end broken. So there's that experience of sort of watching it. And then I feel at the end, we get to think, how do we not let it get this far in our lives?
Yes.
And what can we do, right? We go to the theater to watch actors sacrifice themselves to play out parts of our lives for us. They are enacting our lives for us so that we can then see them and evaluate them at a distance without hurting one another's feelings.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that there's a cry at the center of the play for healing, for seeing one another, for I think in particular parents and adult children to find each other in a new way.
Yeah.
I also think there's a lot of and we see this in the world, but I feel everyone in the play is my struggle is the hardest. And we all feel that walking through the world. Right. And it's oh, this person's also struggling. And the family should be the center of healing. I mean, it's what I also love. It's a multi-generational family too, which is really cool. And to see that family can look different. And even what Lavinia is proposing is a new way of living and being. Kirsten lives in a multi-generational family. My family doesn't all live on a compound, but we all live with in a 5-minute drive of each other, that there's new ways to look at how to be a family. And I think that that's really exciting,
Yes, I love that. I also grew up in a multi-generational family too. Both of my grandmothers lived with me and I had uncles living. So it was always a packed house, and always felt for me growing up that was wrong, because so many of my friends didn't understand that kind of why would you live with your grandmas? Why would your uncle live with you and your cousin? And for me, that was that's how it's always been. That's just how it is in my family. And that makes it so much more special to have that relationship. And I think that's one thing I love.
And Lavinia's desire is it will be easier.
Exactly.
We can take care of each other.
Right. And I think about the phrase, it takes a village, and it does. It takes a village to raise a child, to raise people. So why not let us, go towards that kind of idea and be okay with it? Something I hope our play can remind people of.
Yeah, and I also think that although there are 2 gentlemen in this play who I adore and their characters very much, the women are at the center of the play. And I think that their voices are loud and clear, and that they are loud and clear without the trappings of how we often see female characters portrayed.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a couple tantrums, but no real breakdowns.
Right.
There's that erratic behavior that I think is attributed to women is not there. And I hope that women are heard in this play, and in particular Black women who we don't often see in the center of stories, let alone 5 of them.
Yes, 5 strong, beautiful Black women. Yes, say it again. Well, thank you, Kimberly, so much for taking the time to talk to us about this beautiful play. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
you. Come
see
all. Come see our Daughters Like Pillars.